This is Working for Progress, a podcast that connects us through conversations about how we craft our working lives and make progress. We'll be joined by our communities from Tribe Porty and Keystone. Tribe Porty is a community co-working space and creative hub. We are full of entrepreneurs, social enterprises, freelancers, charities, and SMEs. Keystone is the other social enterprise which supports women to reimagine their working lives. We do this by providing a holistic approach to business through courses, programs, mentoring, group coaching, and events.
Welcome to today's conversation. I'm Alice, the community manager at Tribe Porty.
And I'm Dani, founder and director of both Tribe Porty and Keystone.
Here at Working for Progress, we're all about connecting good people, sharing their stories, their challenges, and the progress they make for themselves and for others. We hope this podcast challenges your ways of thinking and inspires you to work for progress.
Working for Progress starts with simple pleasures, finishes in awe, and meanders through career journeys in between. Anna from Studio Gently is an Edinburgh-based brand photographer working with kind and creative people across the UK. Her brand photography business started in 2016, which suffered a major wobble 6 months in, when her excessive work hours led to a psychotic episode. She has been passionate about creating safe spaces and running a burnout-free business ever since. So welcome, Anna.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming in. I can't wait to find out more about you. Obviously, don't know you all that well. You're fairly new to Tribe, but we'll start with a nice and easy question about your 5 simple pleasures.
5 simple pleasures. I think we've just mentioned one, which is getting my nails done. It is my favourite. I love colourful nails. As long as the colour is sludge, then I'm happy. Besides that, I would definitely say our camper van. Maybe more of a complex pleasure. It's a bit of a journey getting there. Not a lot of work for me though, thankfully, but that's definitely one of them. I would say going to the bakery. I would say I actually do kind of feel like my work is a source of pleasure, and I feel very lucky that that's the case. And then lastly, my nephew. He's like my whole world. Absolutely obsessed with him. He's 5. And he's just the best person that we've ever had. So thank God I got to meet him.
Oh, lovely. He's a lucky boy to have such a invested aunt.
Yeah.
And is he in Edinburgh?
No, he's back home in Northamptonshire. So that's where I'm from.
Is that where you're from?
Yeah, some of my family's still there. Including him, so yeah, I miss him very much.
And are you close to is it your sister or your brother?
It's my twin brother.
Nice one. Are you guys close?
We are close. We were probably less close when we were younger. I think we kind of had phases like when we were very little, we were super close, like especially while we were very tiny. And then while I was a teenager, I just feel like we kind of stopped appreciating how lucky we were to be twins. But once I went to uni, and also he'd gone into the army for the first time, got discharged with an injury, but that kind of experience of being separate, that really like woke us up to, again, how fortunate we were. So yeah, it's very
That must be quite a natural sibling thing though, to not appreciate each other when you're a teenager.
I just think when you're on top of each other, there's no space to be like, oh my God, you're actually really cool and funny, and we're so similar. That's actually kind of good. So yeah,
cool, good. I'd love to hear about your values and how your values play out in your work.
Yeah, I had a little think about this earlier. I think the first one for me, is about creating a safe space for everybody, and I think I embody it in my personal life a lot, where I really take a lot of pride in, like, if friends say that they feel like calmed by me and that they can talk to me about anything and stuff like that, that's always like the most meaningful, like warms me up and like lights me up kind of compliments. But in my work, I would definitely say I feel so strongly that everybody has a right to enjoy having their photo taken and love being more visible as a business, and being a brand photographer, that's at the heart of what I do. So definitely I would say like safe spaces, personally and professionally, is a big one. Beyond that, I just feel like there's things like advocacy, kind of mental health advocacy is a big one. I had a psychotic episode in 2017, which thankfully was an acute psychosis, so like a one-off episode, an event, that it didn't turn into something like schizophrenia or any other like long-term conditions. But even though mental health kind of really isn't, closely linked to brand photography, I still try and embody a certain kind of way of working and sort of model behaviours and boundaries and things to my clients, because I so want everybody to love their work and for it not to be a chore or even a source of illness like it became for me, because it was 100%, all of that episode was linked to overworking, poor work boundaries, not looking after myself, not realising I needed to look after myself, and just trying to burn the candle at both ends because I was so excited to have a business and I'd only just started and it was so wonderful. But yeah, since then I've had to relearn what actually is healthy and what actually is necessary as well, because a lot of what I was doing in hindsight was not necessary in the slightest. So that feels like another big one where I always want to, if I get a chance to talk about my episode, I always want to chat about it, because it's not something that's very taxing for me to talk about. I had a lovely experience with my NHS healthcare team, who were amazing and did such a phenomenal job of getting me back to where I am now, which is pretty much, the same as I was before, but with a whole load of learnings on top, which is nice. But I just feel like it's such like a psychosis is kind of a big bad boy in like the mental health world, where we're very comfortable talking about anxiety and depression in most cases, and there are other mental health conditions that are getting that similar kind of uptake in where we're more open and we're more comfortable. But psychosis, even though it's really common, about like 3% of the population ish, which is like the same amount of people that have green eyes, so it's very common.
Yeah.
Even though it's so prevalent, it's not very open and it's not very understood or discussed. And I feel probably because I'm self-employed and I get to choose my work life and I don't have to worry about what a boss thinks or what my colleagues think about my mental health past, I feel a lot safer to bring that conversation kind of forwards and have chats about it with anybody that's curious.
I'm super curious. Were you working in your own business in 2017?
I was. So I'd started in September 2016 and it was my first time ever working for myself. But
were you straight out of university or how?
No, so
I just started.
Out of university, I went back to the shop that I worked in as a teenager, who'd had me while I was at university, but they had a little bit more work. And I'd originally started photographing a shop, like the products and the pieces for the web shop. And then they had some more other kind of bits and like small businesses. There's always so much to do.
Yeah.
So I was a bit more of an all-rounder there for a couple of years. And then I did Camp America, working as a camp counsellor in the States for about 3 months. And then after that, there was just this natural break and there was nothing else that felt like it was really calling my name. And other people I was at camp were like lining up interviews and getting excited about the start of their careers. And I was just like this little itch of like these 3 clients that had asked, would you do our social media? Would you do our photography? It just couldn't be ignored. So I came back and was like, let's do this. And like I say, I loved it. So that was why there weren't any work boundaries. It wasn't, an exercise in kind of martyrdom. It was very kind of started out as a joyful thing of, I so love doing this. Why wouldn't I spend all of my time, doing it? And yeah, I didn't have like a family history of particularly eventful mental health. Like nobody in my family's ever had a psychosis, which I think was a bit daunting for everyone when I had one. But yeah, it was just a lot of overworking, which turned into not very good sleep. And then when my sleep started getting bad, that was when it kind of spiraled and early signs of psychosis kind of emerged. But yeah, it's quite a common thing, especially with young people. People in their 20s tend to be a really big kind of group that is prone towards psychosis, again, because people just haven't learned the importance of boundaries and the importance of looking after themselves, because they've never had any experiences that highlight to them like why that's necessary.
And in hindsight, what were the physical signs or signs that you see now leading up to that point?
Yeah, the big one is the sleep factor. Like if you've not slept for more than 2 days, then you need some kind of intervention.
Was it that level? You weren't sleeping for days?
Oh yeah. It got really quite bad. So often I'd have nights where it'd be like 4 hours. So I remember there was a few weeks where I was just getting 4 hours, but that for a few weeks is a really long time.
Yeah.
And then it got down to like maybe a week of 2 hours, which is also too long. Oof. And then there was about 48 hours where I don't think I slept at all, like right prior to when it became very obvious that there was a problem and that the problem was psychosis. But for me, that was the biggest one. But besides that, there's a little kind of common thread of obsessiveness with psychosis. It's very frequent that people that have an episode, that they're exhibiting some kind of obsessive or trying to control the situation type behaviour. So for me, it was all linked with minimalism. I was really keen to like purge, and I wanted a clear space and a clear home and a clear everything. And yeah, that was in hindsight kind of beyond what was normal and what was healthy. And I think my dad actually kept, because I was still living at home at the time, but I think he kept like all of the things that I'd
gotten rid of
and I'd thought I'd gotten rid of, exactly. And he like hid them in the loft of the garage so that I wouldn't know, kind of thing, which I'm now glad that he did, because there was like things from childhood, like things that were very special and probably should never have been thrown out. But yeah, that kind of obsessive pattern is a really common thing.
Can I ask what, like, was there a moment? Can I ask what psychosis looked like in your case?
Yeah, so for me, I had not that many hallucinations. Hallucinations tend to be the thing that people think of if they think of psychosis, if they know anything about it. I didn't have many, but I did have some weird scent hallucinations that were very strange. Like I could smell smells that weren't there, and they were a little bit distressing in nature. But most of it for me was about delusional thinking, believing things that weren't true. I thought like my family were trying to control me, so I went to stay at a friend's who was, I presume, very baffled by the whole situation, but we hadn't quite worked out that I was ill yet. So that was definitely part of it. Lots of paranoia. I remember having some weird thoughts around like Donald Trump was trying to get me and stuff. Like Donald Trump was, I think he'd just become president at that point. Yeah. So he was very much like in the headlines. And that's a really common thing in psychosis, that your delusions or your paranoia, they take things that exist in real life and kind of amplify them and take them beyond reality. But yeah, it does make sense, because they notice that in psychosis patients you have an excess of dopamine, which we're used to thinking of like, oh, dopamine's like
good, yeah,
feel good, yeah, exactly. But it's a neurotransmitter, so it's one of the things that helps your body and your brain like talk to themselves, basically. But I see it as psychosis, if you've got too much of that neuroreceptivity, let's call it, then your brain is going to start creating things, seeing things that aren't there, believing things are true that aren't true. And that certainly explains how it felt to me, that it just felt like all of my senses were dialed up way too high. So yeah, that would be how I describe it, I think.
And sorry for my ignorance, is that similar to mania then, if you're bipolar?
It's similar, yeah. So mania tends to be kind of a heightened state, this is my understanding, but a heightened state of wakefulness and maybe a drive to be very active in all various kinds of ways. And there's an element of mania, or it felt like that to me for psychosis, but kind of with this edge of a detachment from reality. So thinking things that aren't true, feeling things that aren't there, stuff like that. So they're kind of,
I see the difference.
Siblings in a way. Yeah.
Goodness me. And so where did you start? What did your recovery look like, or how did you get support and help, and how long was that journey?
Yeah, so it started because my parents, when I came back after staying at my friend's house, spoke to my aunt saying that they thought something was off, but they weren't sure what that off thing was. And my aunt said, well, you can take her into A&E, which I didn't know. So you can take people that are having a mental health crisis into A&E.
That was good to know.
Yeah, definitely. So they took me in. I was absolutely high as a kite while I was there, just not on drugs, just on like my mental state.
Dopamine.
And so, yeah, I had all sorts of versions of what was going on, and like people weren't nurses, they were priests and stuff, that one of the nurses was too beautiful to be a nurse, she was an actress, things like that.
Did you go willingly?
I did, because I was aware that something wasn't right.
Okay.
So initially I had no kind of questioning of what was happening, and no awareness that it might not actually be reality. But as time kind of went on, I started to realise I don't feel well, and there was some kind of element of awareness. I think that if you go untreated for long enough, that you lose that sense of self-awareness. That's what I remember one of my nurses telling me, but I still had it, so I was willing to go along. But from there, I think we saw the A&E staff at about 3 a.m. by the time we'd kind of waited and been through all the various people we had to. And they set up an appointment with a psychiatrist at 10:30 on the same day, 10:30 in the morning on the same day. And I saw a crisis team for about 2 weeks that were all about mental health, and came in initially a couple of times a day, and then it kind of scaled back slightly. And then they transferred me over to, it was called NSTEP, but it was the early intervention psychosis team that are just all about people having their first acute psychotic episode and trying to intervene and make sure that they don't go on to develop schizoaffective disorder or schizophrenia or anything else that's related to long-term psychosis or repeated psychosis. So I had a community psychiatric nurse, I had a psychologist, I had a psychiatrist, and it actually has won awards. That team is like probably the best in the country. I would say maybe the best in the world, but I'm probably a bit biased. But they're really kind of innovative and effective at treating psychosis, and I ended up seeing them for about 3.5 years, but that was only because the end of my 3 years hit just as the pandemic hit, and they weren't discharging anyone, but they were like, your episode was very linked to global events and you were very distressed by politics, so we're not going to let you go anywhere.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Red flags of a pandemic happening, yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, there was psychology, which was kind of talking therapy. There was medical intervention. I still take my meds now, just on a smaller dose. I had my community psychiatric nurse that I saw really regularly, and then kind of less regularly as I kind of needed her less. But it was kind of a multi-prong approach, where there was even things like family therapy that I never got round to but could have taken them up on. But they had a really kind of comprehensive team and awareness and understanding of treating psychosis. So yeah, thankfully it was very, very treatable and very well treated. So yeah, it's
a good story, isn't it? Like and great shout out to a team. It doesn't always happen. I don't think you always feel supported sometimes by a medical provider, but that's amazing.
Yeah.
And do you think that sense of creating a safe space for others now was always in you, or has it kind of been heightened by your own experience of not being in a safe place?
Yeah, I think probably both are true. Like, I was a really kind of nerdy, geeky kid at school, and so like the popular kids, it wasn't bullying, but there was just like niggles here and there kind of thing. And so I remember being at school and having that feeling of like being an outsider, which I think probably all children have. I just think that's the nature of the environment. So I think probably it started there, but definitely having had my episode and like so much of the self-work that was kind of involved in recovering was about accepting that I wasn't a monster, and if I were crazy, it also wasn't a bad thing to be crazy, and what did crazy mean and all that kind of stuff. I think I felt so kind of, again, like at the fringe and scared of being like outside of society and outside of my family and so many things, that I remembered that feeling, and when it came to my work it was like, cool, this is just me, this is what I care about. It definitely deepened that passion and that drive.
Yeah, it's amazing how these, I mean, we obviously wouldn't wish it upon anybody, and I'm sure it was very difficult and challenging and scary, but also these big things create a new version, and quite often a deeper, wiser version of who you already are, and then how you can live that out in terms of what you've learned, because clearly you've spent 3.5+ years really working on yourself.
Yeah.
Which some people never do.
Yeah, and in a way I was quite glad to have had an episode while I was in my 20s and to figure these big things out at such a young age, because I don't know that I would have done all of that shadow work and all of that self-love and acceptance if I hadn't had that experience. It was an awful experience, and I don't recommend it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to glorify it in any way.
But I do also feel grateful for it at the same time, and I'm glad that it happened, and aware that it did bring a lot of good into my life, and probably it's a net positive kind of situation.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing so much.
No problem.
Similar vein, I would love to hear about the kind of biggest risk that you took or have taken to date.
Yeah, I was thinking about this as well, and I think starting a business still feels like quite a radical act, so I feel like I can't like not mention starting a business. Besides that, I also kind of felt like moving here from Northampton was a big act. I'd had some horrible experiences in Northampton, but I just felt this really strong drive of wanting to start fresh and wanting to be somewhere that I enjoyed. And I'd come to Edinburgh on holiday and just like completely got the bug and fallen in love with it. And it was like, why just save this feeling for holiday? Like, why just, suffer living somewhere I don't love and then occasionally get a week somewhere lovely when you could just be in the somewhere lovely? So definitely it was a real like rebirth of the business, and I wasn't expecting to have to restart in so many ways. And I kind of had clients all over the UK, and now I have mostly Scottish clients, which I really wasn't expecting. But I am glad, because about 6 weeks after I moved, I met my partner, and I was like, oh, this is just like the ultimate, like, well done, Anna, like, little pat on the back.
When did you move to Edinburgh?
Sign. It was August 2022.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm planning to do something nice in August. Like every August, I just want to celebrate like an anniversary here.
Nice.
So.
And you think you'll stay?
I hope so, definitely.
Yeah. And I guess you're right, when you have your own business, you've got your networks down there, you've got people that know you. That's everything when you're a small, self-employed person, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So that's great that you've got mostly Scottish clients now. You've clearly been doing something right.
Yeah, totally. And I think it helps that I shoot for a couple of magazines, and I said to one of them that I was planning to move to Scotland, and she was like, amazing, you can kind of be our go-to like Scottish photographer. And I think that just always mentioning my love of Scotland and all these businesses that I was getting to photograph, I think that definitely helped.
Nice. And your parents and yourself, clearly that was a family event in some way because you were living at home.
Yeah.
And they've come through with you through the journey, and you're still close, and that's all. Yeah, you're able to talk about it freely and feel supported.
Yeah, they were amazing. I just can't imagine how awful it must have been. Like,
alone.
I don't even have children, and just the thought of like watching your child, like my imaginary child, go through that, like it must have been just absolutely abysmal for them. But they were really understanding, and I think at first I was worried, like, you know, I'd said all these things that they were controlling me, and like all these things that I thought were true, but they weren't true. They felt true, but it was the psychosis. And I really thought they're never gonna like love me and accept me after I've said all of this, and they did. It was amazing. So I would definitely say it kind of enriched our relationship. It had never really been tested before then. I'd always just felt super lucky to have them. Been a super, like, you know, easy kid in a lot of ways, I think. And so, it was interesting and valuable to kind of have that experience where I realised, oh, like, they're always going to be there for me. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about a time where you felt a sense of awe, or you get in a state of flow. You can talk about either or both.
Yeah, so before moving to Scotland, I would never have described myself as an outdoor person. And I think a lot of it is kind of spearheaded and led by my partner rather than my own volition. But when I think of awe, I do think of the trips that we've had in the camper van and that kind of experience of being completely in the quiet and not hearing any source of like human activity for miles and miles and miles around. And that filled me with such awe, and that feeling kind of lingers when we've had a weekend away and it's the week after. Even on like the Thursday or the Friday, I still feel like this peaceful sort of space in myself, and that emotion kind of stays with you. And I've always said like I'm an indoor cat, like in human form. Yeah, I'm 100% a pet cat in human form. But yeah, kudos to my other half for kind of introducing me to hiking and exploring the outdoors more, because I think I would have totally missed it. And I do also think there's such a difference being in Scotland versus being in England, where we have a right to roam here, and it feels like we're much more connected in a way, whereas there's lots of things that are different, I think, about England and Scotland, but definitely one of them is that feeling of connection and that feeling of it belongs to you and you're allowed to be there, and it's safe and it's okay for you to be out in nature kind of thing, which doesn't really translate where I'm from. So.
Yeah. I get the same feeling. I thought it was just me about Scotland versus England, and no shame on England. I like it's fine, but I don't feel I don't feel the same when I go on holiday in England than when I go on holiday in Scotland. There's just something does to my soul being out in the Highlands or the West Coast or the East Coast, anywhere really. That's interesting that you kind of feel that as well.
Definitely. And even like being a resident of Scotland versus living in England, there's these little things here that just speak to a kind of community mindset that in England you're very much made to feel like you're just kind of an individual and blah blah blah. And even things like our bins outside the flat have got a sign on that says, please don't put glass in the bin between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. And I'd never seen a sign that said that before I moved here. But or like the Wi-Fi on like ScotRail Wi-Fi says like use it sensibly, and all of these little things where it's like a reminder that it's not just you're kind of part of a bigger group, and life's a lot easier if we're kind of there for each other. That's a really foreign concept to me. That's a really novel concept to me. But I love it.
That's cool. What are you working on just now? And where's your focus in your work? And I guess also, how do you make sure you are taking care of yourself as well as your business? Yeah,
so I'm working on my mini portrait day that's happening this May, on the 24th of May. But also I'm working on my talk for Tribe, which I don't know when this is coming out, but it might be beforehand. So I'm excited for then. But also, like, I love having work boundaries, and I love, again, that kind of what I said before about that modelling of work boundaries, I think is really important too. So I swear by, like, my out of office always says, like, here are my online hours, just as like a reminder to people. I put my annual leave and like the footer of my emails as well, stuff like that. In my experience, like, people are so happy to hear what your boundaries are, and so take them as like a reminder to themselves, like, oh, I can do stuff like this. And I've never had anyone be like, oh, you are taking too much time off. No. How dare you? Like, I have Fridays off, and I remember initially being like, oh, people are going to have such, so much to say about this, and nobody does. Like, people, I think, appreciate the reminder of like, oh, we can all do things a little bit differently and a little bit more restfully.
Absolutely. I love that. I think the more we do it, the more the culture changes. You're right. Yeah. And it's great to be very clear about what you're working. Then nobody gets upset. If they know you're not around, then they'll not bother. They don't care. They just need to know.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you communicate it, then people can't, there's no issue. There's nothing to stress about.
Absolutely. It's been great to find out a little bit more about you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
To hear more about Tribe Porty and Keystone, you can find us on all social media platforms. Please head over to our website and subscribe to our newsletters, which includes monthly blogs to provide helpful insights into how we craft our working lives. This has been Working for Progress. We hope you join us again.